Hello, my name is He Who Is in the Water, and I wanted to give a report on this Planetary Qualifier that I participated in, and as the title kind of gives away already, I got top 4 in. So I do like to just kind of generally talk about the events that I participate in, be they successes or failures. Obviously, the failures have a little less to talk about, but I still wanted to talk about this event because I think my deck is pretty cool, and I had a lot of fun at it, and I think there's just like enough to talk about here to warrant doing like a video just on this, as opposed to kind of where I've like touched on at the end of the season, like the events that I've played in. So you may notice I look a little bit funky here. There is no heat in my apartment at this time, so I am wearing several layers of clothes to be comfortably warm here, but we got some space heaters in here. But it is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so with bad wind chill. So we're making it through it. So my voice might not be the strongest as a result, and I have a warm thing of coffee here to help me through this part. But yeah, so let's talk about the event. So it was up in St. Albans, Vermont, which is not somewhere I've been before. I haven't been to Guardian Cards and Comics. I wanted to go to a Planetary Qualifier there before, but they had some real life issues that came up that prevented that one from happening. So I was excited to make my way back up there. And my brother recently moved to Vermont, so I've been like wanting to explore Vermont a bit more. So this was a good opportunity to do that as well. And I haven't driven that part of, or I drove from, so I'm based in the Albany area, but I drove up the side of Champlain in the morning there, and really it was just a beautiful drive. It was a beautiful morning for a drive. A little bit cold, but it was just really nice. So my day was off to a good start that way. And the store itself was pretty easy to access, and just phenomenal staff, and just a tremendously friendly community. Like this was just genuinely, aside from me doing well, like one of the most positive experiences I've ever had at like a community event. Just like everybody was so nice, so friendly, and really just there to have a good time playing the game. But that also, like, people were there to play the game. You know, we were playing competitive decks and trying to win, but it was people genuinely appreciating that, but not getting too worked up over it. Like just the vibe at the top tables, which is actually not where I was for most of it, but like the general vibe was just like a pretty positive and supportive thing, and people just wanting to see what's good and push themselves to play better. So it was just a really great environment to be around. The local players were showed up in force, and it was really cool. And oddly enough, it was like not a lot of players I had seen before, which I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe some people from my way in Albany, maybe some people from like Massachusetts that I've seen at some of these events would make their way up, but it was like just primarily local players, and then the Canadian players. So a lot of folks from Montreal and Quebec, which was a weird experience sitting at a table playing this game, and like every single table around me is speaking French, and I'm the only one making my Quebecois opponent speak English for me because I don't know French. And that was kind of weird, and in no way made me feel singled, or not necessarily singled out, but it was just like, it was just a funny thing to know. I was like, I have not been in like a primarily French speaking group like that in a long time. So it was just kind of a humorous experience that way. But folks were really nice. So let's talk about what I played, which it was Anakin Data Vault. Oh, come on, presentation. There we go. And this was like hyped up, I think, to be one of the best decks coming into the format. And the last month or so, since everything got on Carabast, I've been testing it, and this was kind of my start point for wanting to explore the Secrets of Power format. And I just genuinely never found a reason to move off of it. I think it's just very consistent. And a few weeks back in testing, I identified that I felt like one of the worst matchups was Yoda green. I didn't specifically land on Data Vault for that, but like Force variants or Data Vault variants were both problematic to me in testing. And I was like, I felt that the matchup was pretty structurally bad. And then Wu, or Ophir Maram, he won like a PQ with Yoda Data Vault and was very public about it, and like his video on it is very good. He's a very articulate speaker, and a fantastic player, of course. So that was like really scary to me. So first off, I felt smart from that. That I had correctly identified that this was a structurally, like the Yoda matchup was structurally bad, but and so when I say that, it's not purely an ego thing. Ego is definitely a small part of that, but when I'm like identifying that, like, oh, I was correct about what this matchup meant, that at least to me means like I have and other people are approaching this match or this deck to come up with Yoda as a great answer to it that also has good play into the meta at whole. And that's, yeah, it's not just an ego thing, but that leads me to believe that I'm on the right track. I understand some of what this is doing, and it's not for me to be like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the room. It's like I'm a person that took organic chemistry for fun. I just like enjoy solving these difficult problems and being like, hey, I kind of got a correct-ish answer. It's not about like, oh, I have the intellectual property to say that I was the first one to do it. It's like, no, it's just kind of satisfying to solve these problems and think about them. And that I was like somewhat close to being like, hey, that's maybe a thing to look at. And I probably should have looked at it better. But yeah, so that was like a week before this event was Wu wins with Yoda Data Vault, puts it on the map as a real deck. And that was kind of... I had already had a lot of doubts about particular card choices in this, and that kind of led me to be playing this different variant of it. Although this is still like primarily the same, and so that's kind of why I'm glossing over here. It's like if you've seen Anakin Data Vault lists at any other point this season, you know like the vast majority of cards here. So there's only like, and so that's... Yeah, so there's really only like a handful of cards here in the main deck that we want to talk about that's like different or interesting about my builds. So the three that I was like consciously aware of being different are Seasoned Fleet Admiral, K2SO, and Poe Dameron. And these are largely in reference to cards I did not like in normal Anakin builds and then trying to be good against Yoda. Turns out that Sundari Peacekeepers is also a card that like people had moved away from, and I've just kind of been playing the whole time. Card's good. It's not good in every matchup, but like it's a real card to put in your deck. So I'm like, I don't really have too much to say about it there. It's like it's good against linear decks that are trying to kill you, bad against mid-range decks that are trying to engage in combat with you, and it kind of does exactly what it says. If they're trying to remove your units with their units, the raid 2 is really problematic. But if you're racing a space opponent, then this card's incredible. So the other cards that I want to talk about, and so Seasoned Fleet Admiral, K2SO, and Poe Dameron. The notable cards that will be excluded from this list that are common in other Anakin lists that like loosely replacement here is Gunji, General's Blade, and Hu Yang. Hu Yang, I don't believe, is like a particularly spicy take here to say that card is just win more. If your 2-drop is sticking around in play, then Hu Yang's great. If it's not, it's really bad. And we just don't have to play cards like that. I just found that I didn't need that kind of inflexibility in the deck, especially as people were developing better strategies against this. It's just a card that reads very face-up. Similarly, General's Blade. I can't stand that card. It's not bad, but I hate playing it because it's so face-up on like what you're trying to do. I also found that the normal builds of this deck have an embarrassingly low number of Jedi for it. They would be playing like 2 Gunji, 2 Obi-Wan, 2 Huyang, and that's like your only like good targets to put it on. So it was like 6 or 7 targets, and otherwise it's just 3 cost +3/+3. I don't care for that card. I would much be more interested in like Yoda's lightsaber if we're just needing the buff, because so many of our units are so healthy anyway. So General's Blade is just not great on that front. I don't understand a good portion of it in the deck building, and also it opens you up to so much interaction. So many decks are just playing Bamboozle. And Traitorous is like a huge part of what I think made Yoda Data Vault explode, and General's Blade is awful into Traitorous. Fell the Dragon becomes really good against this deck if you start dropping in General's Blade. Power of the Dark Side, things like that, just no glory, only results. Those cards all become much better with a General's Blade in play on our side. And it felt like I was taking so much risk to put this card into play and then just getting medium payoff. And so I really just didn't want to have that experience. And I feel like people are really adjusting to that. And then sideboard, it's like everybody in a red deck has Outer Rim Constable. So like, why am I putting this 3 cost upgrade that doesn't have an ETB? I found that every matchup had something for General's Blade post board, and I'm just always boarding it out. And I don't really want to put cards in my deck that I'm always boarding out. And I didn't feel like it was ever that costly for my opponents to respect the General's Blade. I didn't feel like I was putting people in corners with it either. So that was a card that I was really low on. And unfortunately, if you're low on General's Blade, I think Gunji is just not as exciting. It's a perfectly fine 2-drop. But let me talk to you about Seasoned Fleet Admiral, because this card has so many niche uses. So specifically, it is kind of like a mainboarded thing for Yoda to prevent them from ever really wanting to use that ability proactively, because the 1/4 is somewhat difficult for them to remove quickly from the board. And it also functions very similar to Gunji with Anakin. You have 1 less point of native attack, and it's raid instead of +1/+0, and then you have 1 less point of health. But the ability, if you trigger that ability once, you are just way ahead of whatever Gunji's offering you, and there are a number of incidental triggers for that in the metagame. So Yoda being one that I'm keen on. Dr. Pershing is another one that's pretty common in the blue villainy decks. There are leaders that are just going to be really good against like that, like the Kylo leader. The Invisible Hand as a card likes to draw cards. Han2 Blue does a lot of drawing cards with Kaida Mundi and the various Yodas. Or not various, I think just the Spark of Rebellion Yoda. Quill is still out there. There's just a lot of incidental value that he can gain, and I felt like there was upside there. And also, he is an official, which does matter for Queen Amidala. So we'll talk about Poe next. And this one is like half of a supply issue and half I think there's genuinely something here. Like, Poe is a card that people play in small numbers in this archetype, but I do like it a bit more than Queen Amidala for the Yoda matchup, because a lot of these blue heroism decks have adopted playing Legends of the Force Anakin Skywalker without any dark side cards. They're just playing it as -3, -0 because they're just playing it to give something -3 on entry as a 5/7, and that's really good against Queen Amidala because the spies are much less useful if you don't have her to go with them. And so Anakin is a card that I think has, become popularized by that deck. So that's, and so this was kind of my plan to be like, okay, Yoda is using Traitorous and Anakin. I want to not be as in on Queen Amidala. I want to not be as in on General's Blade to try to play around those effects better. And I think Poe is an effective sidestep to that. I also only have 1 Queen Amidala in the cards that I've opened, or the friends that I was borrowing cards from. So, or the friends that I typically borrow cards from. So I was sort of like pretty content to play Poe instead. And just he offers some additional utility. He's just a different card than Queen Amidala. They're 5 drops that we just drop into play for big value and try to kill people with. Also, to tie back into the General's Blade argument, without General's Blade in the archetype, I still like Home 1 a lot as a card, but I think without the way to cheat it into play as much, and most game 1s are ending pretty quickly in this format, I just didn't think Home 1 was the kind of main deck card that I wanted. I think it's still really good in this deck, and I love it, but I was just more comfortable putting that to the sideboard and trying to get games over with quickly. And that, again, feels kind of on plan with Poe Dameron being a card that is effective at killing your opponent in like 2 hits, but Home 1 wants you to be playing a more rampy, longer game. So I felt like that was kind of a reasonable pivot. And the last card to talk about in the main deck is K2SO, and I felt like I just wasn't having impactful enough 4 resource turns with this deck. Like if you go 3-drop plus Bounty Hunter's Quarry, that can be like a good way to get ahead on resources. But in general, working with this archetype that I've seen other people on, I felt like the 4-drop slot was sorely lacking, and K2SO was just kind of the best thing I could find. And I'm not even going to tell you like it was the right choice. I think I won games in this event specifically because of K2SO, and it was good, but I can't tell you that like this is the right card to be playing. But I do think, as I've talked about Poe being a more aggressive card here, I think K2SO is also like fits with that plan. Having Overwhelm means that you can translate Anakin's ability into more damage on both players' bases, which can be useful to race people. And if you're not racing, then being able to discard your opponent's cards with it is like ostensibly kind of nice. There's not like any huge synergy here. This isn't a huge synergy deck anyway, but like K2SO was just, I couldn't find something better at that point in the curve. Like if I had more Amidalas, then maybe I just like play Amidalas over K2SO and I just don't bother cutting the pose. And maybe that's the move, but I don't know. K2SO was good though, but I can't tell you that I was like supposed to be playing K2SO. But shocker, card that's been playable since Spark of Rebellion, still playable. I don't know, not the most insightful commentary that I have for you here. The sideboard, I had 3 cards that I was like very certain I wanted to have in. The home ones are just, I think, really important to this deck, and I want them for some matchups, but I don't want to be bogged down with them in others. Choose Sides is another card that I think has always been decent against the control decks that are tapping out for Devastators, Crate Dragons. I mean, not so much Crate Dragons anymore, because I don't know if you want Choose Sides versus Hantu Blue, but like, you know, back against Bosk Blue in the day, Choose Sides was great versus that. That part of that deck. So Choose Sides I think was good versus that, and another card that Yoda Data Vault has utilized that's really effective against this archetype is Bo-Katan, alone from Secrets of Power, and the presence of that card is really what made me want to put Choose Sides at 3 copies, where like that card is extremely problematic for our deck to deal with, but if you steal that Bo-Katan, they're in a lot of trouble, and that deck is not as good at defeating high cost units. So things that have a lot of upgrades or abilities stacked onto them that don't have 3 or less cost. So it's like if they can't Traitorous it needs to be like Fell the Dragon, and I think, you know, my deck is already stressing Fell the Dragon enough that having these Choose Sides to like steal a Bo-Katan and then just slap for 9 and hope that's enough to get across the finish line, I think is a reasonable plan. So the Choose Sides is what made me feel like, okay, I can still play this deck in the face of Yoda Data Vault too. While addition to being good against the various other control decks, especially because, you know, Power of the Dark Side decks are already pretty incentivized not to be playing Power of the Dark Side versus Cobb Vanth and Karis Nemec. So you typically have something to just like throw into the choose sides. And also, so Bo-Katan is a card that's been good against us. Supreme Leader Snoke from Shadows of the Galaxy is another card that has been creeping back into blue-green villainy decks and is difficult for us to play through as well. So Choose Sides is another card that can help mitigate that and maybe steal it. And we have a fair number of units that just like die immediately to Snoke, but we also have a good number that like are just extremely neutered by Snoke. Like the Cassian stat line is horrendous once they play a Snoke, but if you just like trade the Cassian for the Snoke, you're actually back in business. So I think that's another way to help respect that card in the metagame. Lastly, I have Let's Call It War, which is a card that I really loved because I was a little scared of like the JTL Han Tarkintown decks. Space aggro is still I think Anakin absolutely devours the old style Tarkintown decks, and I don't think you can really play Tarkintown in the way that we did before into a format where this is a defining pillar. But I think one of the few ways that you can is with the space aggro decks that are going like one drop in space on turn one. And Let's Call It War is just tailor made to bomb those decks out of the sky. And we do have Jedi Starfighter and Blue Leader, which are good against those decks at a baseline. But I really just found that Let's Call It War, it was such an absolute hammer to drop on those decks and stump their early development and give me time to set up my restore units to race them effectively, that I just couldn't. I didn't want to leave home without 3 copies of it. And it's pretty much just for those kind of matchups, but like Vader is still a deck that's out there, and being able to potentially kill 2 things on the second turn with that, I think is just really good value for this deck, and wanted to hedge that matchup. And this is also like, if you've been, you know, it'd be interesting to see, you know, what percentage of my viewers, as I talk about Star Wars, are familiar with me from playing Pauper and Magic before, or like people who are, you know, God forbid, just watching me because of my personality and not because you're actually playing the game and have an interest in the metagames. Like this is the peak He Who Is in the Water sideboard right here, where it's just like I am playing the maximum number of copies of this particular silver bullet, and that is it. And then I have 1 card that I'm just going to throw in there because, I don't know, I have to fill out the rest of the sideboard. But like, I've got 3 cards that I want all the copies of. I don't do a whole lot of deck building. That's like with 2 costs. I put in, if I want to see a card all the time, I put in 3 copies. If I want to see it rarely, I'll put in 1 copy. And it was the same for Magic. It's like I would play a lot of cards at 1 and 4 copies in Magic, but 2 and 3 did not do a whole lot of that. And that's a huge leak in my gameplay, of course, but like, it's just how my brain works too. And you have to build decks that work for you too. So it's sort of, not a great part of me as a player, but that's just how I build decks. So this is like the peak Star Wars Unlimited He Who Is in the Water sideboard, where I've just got 3 hammers and this Kit Fisto's Aether Sprite, because this deck does lose to like go tall units particularly well. So like, I think Aether Sprite, I've seen people play Fell the Dragon, but really what I was trying to shore up here is like people that are stacking a lot of upgrades. So again, I was kind of concerned about JTL Han Tarkintown. If they deployed their leader and put like a sudden ferocity on it, I wanted to be able to interact with that, as well as a Kylo, a JTL Kylo Ren player, if they wanted to really extend the game and then deploy a massive leader, I wanted to be able to interact with that to a certain extent. And Emergency Powers is a card that's kind of floating around. Gar ECL, as I understand, is trying to use that and pose a real problem to this deck, and I just kind of like having the one Ether Sprite as a way to kind of get myself out of those holes. Pretty narrow. There could be something else. I toyed around with the idea of playing Bombing Run instead as like kind of a fourth copy of Let's Call It War, but I don't know. I just felt like the Ether Sprite was like, here's going to be a silver bullet that's going to crush in some particular matchups, and hopefully I don't have to face them. But yeah, so that kind of, I think, sums up the deck here. I'm not like, this is not a radical restructuring of the deck. I think General's Blade is really the big one that I'm not playing here, and that I'm kind of opposed to, and I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be reasonable people out there saying that I should be playing General's Blade and not, but I'm always a risk-averse player, and General's Blade is such a risky card, but I feel like the metagame is there to like prey on that risk. Like, people are playing Traitorous in the main deck. I'm not sticking a General's Blade on something and hoping it works. I don't. Obviously, you don't do it into like 5 open resources, but even like, I don't know. Like, you put the General's Blade on there, you get one attack with it. God forbid you have the actual Jedi to get the decent value out of it, and then you get the cost reduction, and then your opponent untaps and then does something to it. I don't know. It just doesn't feel that great to me. I haven't enjoyed those games where that plays out. So, and the format just feels so ready for like one upgrade. I do think there's space for decks that will like spam upgrades and really stress people's ability to do that. We did a Bad Batch event a few weeks ago at the Flipside Clifton Park, and that was, so the intent of the Bad Batch events are like play with leaders that are not meta. So there's like a list of acceptable leaders for, and it's like a very fun casual thing to do. And so I played a Lamasu red deck for that because I'm absolutely in love with Lamasu, and I played so many upgrades. I played versus a friend on Luthen ECL, and they blew up like 6 of my upgrades, but I just kept playing more because I just had so many. And so like, I don't think that particular Lamasu deck was good, but I do think there's space that like if you spam enough upgrades, you can still be doing that. But just having like incidental upgrades in your deck, like everybody's ready for that. Everybody's able to take out 1 or 2 upgrades, or you should be able to, or be it through like Traitorous, Confiscate, Outer Rim Constable. You have the tools to be doing that, and the upgrades are scary enough that like you do kind of need to do that. So yeah, that was a weird tangent to throw in there, but yeah, Kid Fista's Ether Sprite is just paying a little bit of respect to that weakness of this deck. And yeah, the rest of this deck is just like stock Anakin, so there's not too much to talk about there. So yeah, let's get into the actual rounds. So round 1, I get paired into the Anakin Data Vault mirror, which is terrifying. And this is where I just spent a few 20 minutes here talking about why I think my build of the deck is good. Let me tell you what it's not good in is the mirror. And I don't think that's, that is what I thought at the start of this round. Not like, oh, I lost and I'm thinking maybe I'm not. It's like, no, I don't have General's Blade in my deck. That's good in the mirror. And I don't have Home Ones in my deck. That's good in the mirror. Those are fantastic in the mirror because it's really, if the Anakin players want to play a slower game, you can play 15 turns. And so at the bare minimum, though, you are slowing the game down a lot by trading and making advantageous trades into your opponent's units. And I was honestly, I was just able to pull a fast one in game 2 because of Poe Dameron, and able to race a little bit quicker on actions than Matt was able to. But this matchup is pretty bad, and I think the games reflected that, where I fell behind pretty quickly. And so like General's Blade didn't actually, I ended up playing Matt twice. General's Blade actually was not a factor in any of our matches. I don't believe. But the home ones were a factor in game 1. Let me tell you that. But I'm also, so I think my deck is less favored in the mirror. But I'll also just say that Matt was a much better player than I was too, and I think played these games a lot more confidently and effectively than I did. And another card that's a pretty big liability for me in this matchup is Sundari Peacekeepers. And I think that might be something that I was willing to keep hands that went 2-drop, 3-drop, where my 3-drop was Sundari. And I think it's possible that I don't keep those hands in the mirror. That might be a lesson that I learned a little too late here, is that Sundari is just too bad in the mirror to be to consider playing it in anything but desperation. So, yeah, this was like a very well deserved loss, I'll say. Matt beat me pretty good. So, start off the tournament 0-1. I get paired into Sabe Tarkentown, which is not a deck that I've played against before. And the gentleman playing, his name was Alex. I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. In my head, I was like, okay, this is just the JTL Han Tarkentown deck that I've been testing against, but with Sabe instead. And I think the game's kind of played out where it's like, that's mostly what was going on. I don't know that for sure. I didn't look at their deck list afterwards or see if they had it in Melee, because like half of the players were in Melee, half of them were not. That part of the event, that was like the only like real slip up I would say, is that I didn't get a Melee link beforehand to submit my deck list. So I just had to like get there and put it in paper. And so like, I'm not going to lie to you, I made top 4. Like, I'm a little sad that like my deck list didn't get posted. And that's perhaps a small impetus for me to be making this video too. Is because I do care about my ego does demand that I have, my deck list out there with my name in this one. So I wasn't entirely sure everything that was going on in Sabe Tarkentown, but I was guessing, a lot of space units. And in both games, Alex had turn 1 double A-wing, which is very scary. And game 1, I was able to pretty effectively beat down. I don't think he had a really good answer for Anakin. He's got some good ways to like, put things together to kill an Anakin, but it's not easy for him. Like, he was able to, play sudden ferocity on his leader and then trade into Anakin that way, but like Anakin's already done like 6 damage, and it's like, or Anakin's already done a considerable amount of damage by that point, so it's just kind of difficult for him to come back on that one. Game 2 was the same thing, where double A-wing on turn 1, but I get to, live the absolute dream here. And I think I had like a Mina Bonteri on turn 1 and let's call it war. So he plays A-wing, I play Mina, he plays another A-wing, I claim, untap, play let's call it war, clear both of the spaceships, and I am so cocky in that moment. Like, that is just that's like everything I wanted that sideboard card to do. I'm in round 2 and it's like it's already done it. It's like I'm living the dream right now. And the game actually goes a lot worse from there. Like, he pivots to playing a whole bunch of, he plays all 3 Faith in Your Friends in a row and just has a ginormous army of spy tokens that I kind of don't deal with, because I play a blue leader to ambush something in space, and then he like doesn't play anything else in space for the rest of the game. And so my blue leader's just hanging out there, and I draw 2 more blue leaders after dumping my hand on some of the early turns. So I'm like, I kind of, like, if I want to ambush these blue leaders into the ground arena, I basically have to just sacrifice the one in space, which like does not feel good at all. And so we're just kind of like awkwardly trading resources back and forth that way. And eventually I do just kind of like barely eke it out. But that was a very strange game. We played, Alex counted afterwards, I think it was like round 14 when we won, and like, this is not a matchup that should go that long. So it was a weird game, but a cool one to play, and I was glad to see Let's Call It War really pop off. For the third round, I played against another local player, Kevin Jones, on Piet Red, and this one went well for me. Now, I really, I am a very biased player. I'm a very emotional player, and I do want to do some honest reporting here. I don't want to just like hype myself up, but I want to tell you that I won this match because of Seasoned Fleet Admiral. And well, two cards. I won this match because of Seasoned Fleet Admiral and Cinta. I was able to get Cinta in both games that I won, and that was what was able to let me deal the killing blow with Anakin. But particularly in game 1, Seasoned Fleet Admiral did not solo, but did an incredible amount of work for a 2-drop. And that was just so exciting. Like, I got to... I won the die roll, which is incredibly important for this matchup. And... had the Seasoned Fleet Admiral on turn 1, was able to trade it into... I can't remember if it was HK-47 or Imperial Dark Trooper. It kind of doesn't matter. Because Seasoned Fleet Admiral lived in both of those circumstances with the... I knew I had to use the Anakin thing, so I was taking damage from it for sure. But then Kevin just started playing Invisible Hand, and like I was just getting a tremendous amount of experience. I got like 3 experience tokens from Invisible Hand in that game. And so that just represented a lot more damage that Seasoned Fleet Admiral was adding to the board while sticking around. And then in game 3, I was also able to like hit lethal because I drew a Seasoned Fleet Admiral, which isn't official. So I was able to protect my Padme by playing the Admiral from hand from a Fulminatrix ping. And that was enough damage to set me up for lethal with Cinta Anakin. So there's a whole lot going on in those games aside from that, but like Seasoned Fleet Admiral was the reason I won those games in addition to Cinta. It's like, toss up between the two of those. But like Seasoned Fleet Admiral is not a card that we're like really talking about in this metagame. And I was like, like I got to do the thing. I got to do a lot of things with him in that game. So that was really exciting. The Piet Red matchup I do think is pretty interesting for Anakin. I think, as with most things that are trying to race you, and we also have the main deck Choms, I think Anakin's going to be a little favored, but not exceptionally favored because you're not really interacting with the space units, so you can put out enough toughness that you really don't automatically lose to an overwhelming barrage. But the Piet has moved back to, maybe not moved back to. They're playing Turbo Laser Salvo, and Turbo Laser Salvo does destroy this deck. You can have some shield tokens to like try to help mitigate that, and that was part of what actually won me the game, is that I had been putting my experience tokens on a shielded Gungan warrior, and that was both restoring and also keeping me protected from some of that removal that the Piet Red plays. So, yeah, but it's a very close matchup. But I think Chom and Cinta, and in my case, Seasoned Fleet Admiral, do enough to, I think, like put us over the edge for it. But this is a very close matchup. But kind of like the last couple of seasons where I played Quinlan Tarkentown during JTL, and I played Kylo Tarkentown last set. Anakin feels similar in that you only play close games. Like you don't have a ton of like landslide things one way or the other. It's like it's very much on a knife's edge. And I don't know, maybe that's just all of Star Wars Unlimited and I'm just oversimplifying, but that's part of what makes this such like a great card game to be playing too. Yeah, so this was a great match, but very close, and we're like one action away from winning or losing. And following in this vein, in the next round, I played against Matthew on JTL Boba Yellow, which is a deck that I'm quite familiar with as friend of the channel, Bard of Snow, Ben, who has played with me a couple of times now, we've played a lot against each other locally, and we've done a lot of brainstorming on how to, build that deck for different metagames. So I'm like pretty familiar with Boba Yellow. Not in this format though, and I definitely didn't play great in some of these, but I did end up winning, but I mean, I got to tell you, like, Matthew played well and also drew incredibly. Like, I didn't attack with Anakin once, I think, for this. No, I did not attack with Anakin once in this match. It was he was hit with no good to me dead every single time. And that was just really problematic for me. I also made some dumb plays. Punishing one is a card that I don't have a lot of experience playing against. And in game one, I didn't do the best against it because I just let like some outer rim constables die to the pings that could have done damage elsewise, which was not good on my part. But punishing one was also putting out a ton of damage because my board gets pretty wide and they're pretty healthy. So Boba Yellow feeling a little bit different than Boba Green, where Boba Green is kind of like trying to, mop it all up and deal with everything that I'm doing. Boba Yellow here, especially with punishing one, is like, yeah, you can have a bunch of units that are damaged. I'm just going to deal like 20 to you over 2 turns. And like that was kind of a real problem. Topple the Summit was also pretty problematic for me and wiped out a lot of units. So I don't know. And I think Matthew played the deck well, but I do think there was also a little bit of confusion in the deck construction because I think of Boba Yellow as being much more aggressive than the Boba Green ramp versions, and punishing one and Topple the Summit both feel like more controlling options to be available to you. And punishing one's more on the edge where it's like, okay, it's killing you and dealing damage to units. It's a little bit messier in what that actually means, but Topple the Summit, I was kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes it's wiping my board, sometimes it's like not doing anything, but it's also a plot card, so I don't know. But this was also a matchup where it mattered in the Piet Red as well. And it was interesting talking with Matt about Anakin Data Vault, where I'm like learning that, okay, my decision to play Sundari Peacekeepers is like kind of a decision and not something that I just thought was stock. But like against Piet Red and Boba Yellow, the Sundaris showed up and they mattered a lot. They made life difficult for my opponents. I did a lot of restoring with them. So I don't know that it's correct or incorrect to play, but it certainly helped me win these matchups. Matthew was also painfully close. I did feel a little bit bad because he almost killed me in game 3. I was at 27 and he was at 29, and he made the correct but difficult choice to claim in front of a lot of damage, where he's just like, he just has to draw something. And he was but I was at 27, and so he drew JTL Devastator and had the Boba in the leader zone, so he was able to deal 5 to me indirectly, but not enough to deal the 6 that was necessary. So it was really close, but a surprise strike would have also gotten there for him. We talked about playing aggressive negotiations. He wasn't on aggressive negotiations, but that card's kind of crazy to me. And I think in like Boba Yellow, I think that's something you're a little bit more incentivized to be doing, because even though you're not having a ton of cards in hand, you're also, I think, more comfortable stopping resourcing at 6 once you flip your leader, and then aggressive negotiations really starts to grow in power, and like aggressive negotiations plays well with the plot cards. There's a lot of interesting exploration to be done in this archetype, and I think Matthew had some really good ideas and had a good deck list together for it, but I think there's a little bit of refinement that would have spelled disaster for me. In that particular moment, aggressive negotiations would have killed me. Devastator did not kill me. I don't think Devastator is really what Boba Yellow wants to be doing, particularly post-board versus Anakin. I don't think you want the game to be going that long. Yeah, an interesting archetype to explore, and I hope that that criticism comes off as constructive and not ragging, because it's a really difficult deck to build, because Ben and I have spent like a long time. I know when we came back from Richmond and we had massive layovers, we spent like 4 hours in the airport trying to build different versions of Boba Yellow to be more or less effective. It's just a really interesting archetype, and one that has some like really cool new toys to play with. So there's definitely something there, and I think I see more potential in Boba Yellow than Boba Green right now, particularly because aggressive negotiations is something you get to utilize nicely. And Boba Yellow's always felt a little awkward to me, where like you're not actually a great hot shot blaster deck, and playing a yellow aggro deck that's not a hot shot deck is like, ugh, does not feel good. So, so in round 5, I get paired into Daryl on Cura Data Vault, and this is the Magic player in me, where I'm just like, ooh, I love tearing apart a control deck. And I think my deck is really well built in this particular event to abuse Kira than even most builds are. And so like, granted, I don't have the home ones in the main deck, but these I discarded a lot of cards with K2SO in this matchup. Let me tell you, I Kellerin into K2SO, I home one into K2SO. this man was sick of my shit with K2SO. I like this matchup was so much fun for me, and also part of like I think what made this event in general feel good for me in this, like, and why this matchup felt good for me too. I was very rewarded for being so patient. I think versus other control decks, you need to be worried about like, when do you get your Anakin deployed, because it's very vulnerable out there. But versus other control decks, like, you need to be applying pressure quickly. But I felt like this was a matchup where I can just sit forever and wait for Cinta to get into the resource row and just wait to deploy Anakin until I'm at like 25 health, and I can really maximize that attack. And I got rewarded in both games for playing my Anakin so patiently. In game 1, I was able to force out 3 super laser blasts before I even deployed my leader, and that was just crazy good for me equity wise. And it felt good to be winning those games. And like, like, better players could figure this out more quickly. But for me, this is like very explicitly a lesson I learned a lot about playing Kylo Tarkentown, is being patient with your leader deploy in certain matchups. And so like, that was really cool to be like, oh, my experience playing Kylo Tarkentown is informing me right now in how to play this. Because I didn't really like look at any deck guides for Anakin Data Vault. I've just kind of been figuring it out on my own, because that's how I enjoy playing card games. And so that was really satisfying to be like, I'm doing that in the same way that like it was satisfying to have good knowledge about my opponent's Boba Yellow deck and what's going on, because I've played against Ben a lot with it. I've talked about it with him a lot. And so it was very like satisfying to win that and have my experience and knowledge like feel like it was a factor. Whether or not that's actually the case, I got to feel that, and that's like very satisfying to me. So game 1, I do think was really dominated by Daryl drawing a lot of super laser blasts in the top portion of his deck and feeling like he had to use them, and that kind of just left the window open for like anything to show up. And the K2SOs really helped to maximize that with my deck. In addition to, he was playing Pike Sentinel and Death Trooper, and a lot of my units line up particularly well versus those. Also, not every Anakin list that I've looked at has been playing 3 Captain Typho, but Captain Typho was a card I was extremely specifically interested in at 3 copies for the Kira matchup, because he matches up very well into Kira, just being a 4-power Sentinel. If you get to, God forbid, Kira player does something unfathomable and ramps and then like immediately plays Kira, you can deploy him and survive a Kira attack. But really, it's a 4-power Sentinel that comes out on 4, so they can ramp probably what happens is you deploy, or you play Typho and then they deploy Kira, and so he's not living the Kira attack, but he's trading with Kira very aggressively, and then you get to have this massive advantage throughout the game where your leader is this huge imposing threat, and Kira's kind of already done what she needs to do. And I just don't feel like Kira is good at stabilizing the board versus Anakin. I've seen some people talk about like Kira being favored into this matchup, and I just do not feel like that's the case. I've probably built my deck to be maybe a little bit better into Kira than most Anakin Data Vault players, but not by a significant margin. And I felt like pretty good in these games. In game 2, I got to live another dream where, like, in game 1, in round 2, I got to pop off with Let's Call It War, and like live the dream with that sideboard card, and I got to live the dream with Choose Sides in this sideboard game versus Kira, which is really bad for me because now I'm going to play that card forever, because I remember this one moment. But my opponent played a Devastator, a Spark of Rebellion Devastator, and shielded it with Kira, and they had a Snoke in play, and I had my rinky-dink little Cassian hanging out as a 1/3, and so I was able to use Choose Sides to steal the shielded Devastator. Granted, it was debuffed with Snoke, so it was just 8 power, but it had the shield token on it. And the shield was so brutal because I overheard my opponent talking to his friends later about the game, and it's like he had overwhelming barrage in hand, but he couldn't OB the Devastator because he had shielded it. I don't know if that's wrong, how much you play around Choose Sides, how much you shouldn't respect a dumbass like me putting that card in my deck. Like, I don't know, but like I got to do it. And it was so awesome, and I was able to have enough fodder to like keep myself from getting Avengered or Power of the Dark Sided out from there, and was able to sneak that Devastator in for the win. And that was just really cool. So yeah, that was really exciting. So at this point in the tournament, I am 4-1. I believe I'm in 5th place. And there's been a lot of I don't believe there were any 5-0 players. I think everybody was there were 3 4-0-1s, and I was like the second best 4-1. But I think I very fortunately got the pair down versus Sebastian on Yoda Data Vault, and he wanted to ID because he's 4-0-1, so 4-0-2 is definitely locked. So I had to. It took me a little bit to reach that decision because I had to like look more at the standings and see where I was, and so I believe there was like 1 4-0-1 that might not make it, depending on it. But I think my breakers were good, and especially because I got the pair up into the 4-0-1. I think that did make me lock, so I believe this was a safe ID. I'm not 100% sure. I'm really scared about that. I'm like risk averse. However, what made me like lock in this decision is that I'd watched some of Sebastian's games earlier, and he's playing Yoda Data Vault. And while I think I have teched my list to be pretty good versus Yoda Data Vault, I don't want to push my luck. like if I lose and then I'm 4-2, there's like a pretty significant chance that I am not in top 8. So I do believe I was supposed to ID here. So that was good for me. The top 8 for this event. Oh, I should have written this down. Okay. Let's see what we can do. All right. So I'm on Anakin. Matt up here is 5-0-1 after this round, so he's also on Anakin. There's a third gentleman on Anakin. I cannot remember names for most of this. So 3 Anakins, Sebastian on Yoda, a gentleman on Han 2 Blue, no Force, Jack on Quinlan Tarkentown, somebody who I didn't see on. There was a Vader Yellow. Oh, and there was an Iden Iden green player as well. So one blue green villainy control did sneak in. So looking at that top 8, I did not feel good. I have identified that I am worse than the Anakin mirror. There are 2 Anakin mirrors out there. I felt good into Vader Yellow. I felt good into Quinlan Tarkentown. Based on how the Cure Data Vault went, I felt like I was going to play a game versus Iden Green. I think Iden is a lot worse than Kira because Kira helps damage. Kira is more mid-rangey than Iden, so like your base gets damaged, your Anakin becomes more threatening. Iden really doesn't do any of that for the most part, so like it's a lot harder to apply that pressure. And Hantu no force blue, I was like, I find the Hantu blue mirror or matchup to be very coin flippy, where it's like whoever wins the die roll is like gonna be pretty favored in game 1 and how it shakes out from there. But like if the Han player has Ogdo Bogdo on turn 1 and the initiative, I'm just gonna lose. And if I have the initiative and I get to just eat whatever unit they play, I'm feeling like I'm gonna win. So and like they don't ramp as much, so like the Bo-Katans and Freight Dragons are way less scary than Out of Yoda, since they're only ramping by 1 with their leader. So you've seen the video, or you've seen the title of the video. So I do win my quarterfinals, but I get the best matchup for me, not close, out of this top 8. So running incredibly hot. I get to play against Quinlan Tarkentown, which is just, like the Tarkentown decks are just gonna be hunted to extinction by Anakin, I think, in their current forms. I mean, Quinlan is still like the best one, but I feel like this matchup is very good for me. And Jack was playing some interesting cards. I didn't get to see much of their games during the event. I knew they were playing Chopper, and so in top 8 we do get to look at their deck lists. And I think his is up on Melee if you want to go look at it, or and you can find it through the SWU competitive hub. And the most notable card he was playing to me that kind of made the early turns play out differently was Chopper War Hero from Secrets of Power. I'm not sure how that works for other matchups. I understand that like being able to kill a 2/4 immediately is like pretty good, but I think I'm incredibly favored in any game that involves Chopper because I just have a lot more top end, and also the there's just like in game 2, he led on Chopper. I go Mina Bonteri. He attacks my base with Chopper as his first action. We both discard a card. Then I attack Chopper with Mina, restore 1, and then draw a card with her Disclose. And so I'm neutral on cards, and Jack is down a card. Like, that exchange was just, I think, backbreaking in game 2. And like, Chopper might do some cool stuff other places, but like that was really, really good for me card advantage wise. So yeah, I think there's also a big part of why I think I won game 1 is that I was the higher seed. I ended up being the 4 seed and Jack was the 5 seed. So I got to put him on the initiative. And I've played a lot of Quinlan. So I'm like familiar with some of these games versus Red Green Heroic. I mean, this was like the whole thing in JTL was that like Quinlan was like finally kind of okay into, maybe not finally, but it was in that season, it was okay into Sabine, which was a menace to the metagame. And like this was, so I knew that like putting the Quinlan player on the play was the right thing to do, I believe. But he just, I would have, as the Quinlan player, I would have passed. I don't know how he's playing the deck in this, and it's really a different metagame and a different animal, so like my knowledge isn't entirely relevant. But like having him on the play, having him have the initiative and make the first move, I was like completely okay to just pass or two, if he passed on the first turn, I was okay to just claim and play a Gungan Warrior, play a Cobb Vanth, play something that's more resilient to the Tarkentown activation at that point, and just extend the game. I did see a little bit of one game of Jack's earlier that put a lot of respect that I needed to. My Kelleran Becks are not safe. They are a really important card in the matchup, but the easiest way that I lose this game, because I think that's just the way that Anakin works, and Quinlan with Tarkentown in particular is just like, we're going to be trading resources. Like, there's going to be an empty board around turn 5 or 6. I've dealt with Quinlan, he's dealt with Anakin, and we're just kind of top decking, because that's the spot that Quinlan likes to try and get to. And in those spots, me as the Anakin player, I'm trying to slam a Kelleran Beck, particularly because I don't have main deck home ones. Kelleran Beck is really the one that I need to slam. And if I just do that in a naked board and I get hit by Han Solo from Spark of Rebellion, pinging and then killing the Kelleran Beck for free, I will lose the game. So it's like, I am just doing everything I can to just stall and stall and stall until I can get a Sentinel in play so that I can protect my Kelleran, or wait until, there were situations where he tapped out for a 2 thing, and okay, now Han Solo is not coming down. Now I have an opportunity to set up some Sentinels and try to do that. So it was a really interesting game in game 1 for jockeying back and forth, where I have less top end than most Anakin decks, so I really need to make this count. But having the tools to be patient enough to make it work was really good. Game 2 started off with that Chopper Mina Bonterra interaction that just incredibly favors me, and he was able to pretty well stabilize the board at 22. But he was in that spot where it's he has to answer everything I play immediately, or otherwise I get to just win or claim the initiative and win, because he doesn't really run Sentinels. And so we got to this really awkward board state. I'm on 9 resources. He sparks my whatever it was. The previous turn, he also pillaged my Kelleran and home ones. That was awful. I think that was him pillaging those. I don't know. I got pillaged a lot. Pillage is okay versus this deck. It's less good versus my build, better versus home 1 builds, and I'll tell you that much. I think I got pillaged, or maybe it was Ahsoka. I can't remember exactly. I only had 1 card in hand. I'm on 9 resources. I play Cobb Vanth. We're 10, 12 turns into the game, and so he's got a bunch of stuff in play, and he's kind of trying to attack my base so that he's pressuring me, but also preventing me from claiming. So I'm sitting there. I've got 6 resources up and my Cobb Vanth, and I'm just saying pass. He does 1 small action, and I'm just saying pass, because I need to play whatever Cobb Vanth hits. I need to be able to play it to threaten lethal with that, so that I'm not spewing value. So I'm just passing. And Jack is stressing out during this part, and I realize after I passed twice, and we do this song and dance 3 more times, but I realize it's oh, he's playing around a Cassian, which is really smart. He's a smart young man to do that. I have no Cassians. I'm 25 cards into my deck at this point. I haven't seen a single Cassian. There's not in my resource row, so I'm just sitting there I'm cheerful, I'm just whatever. I'm just waiting on my Cobb Vanth to die, and then I'm gonna play it, and then I'm gonna claim. And then I realized oh no, he's stressing about the Cassian Andor and trying to play around that, which is very smart. But eventually we do this. I don't have to spend any of my 6 resources. He expends enough of his attackers and actions that he has to claim, so that his first action is killing Cobb Vanth. And so he thinks by claiming he's just lost the game because I have the Cobb Vanth. And then it's no, I just pass. and we go about our day. And then I think I top deck home 1, and it's a very mean end to that game, where he's played really well to get to that point. But it was a very silly moment. We both had a good laugh about that, but it was definitely rewarded for being very patient with my Kellerans in game 1. I think game 2 is like, no offense, I'm kind of on the rails for that one, and like I'm just taking the obvious game action. But game 1, I definitely felt like I was I put in the work to beat Han Solo, and I got to do it. So that was great. So I was thrilled to be out of the quarters with that. I was like, I had my best matchup. I didn't feel like the top 8 was very kind to me, and I'm like that. I'm on cloud 9 for that one. The other players that make top 4 are Matt on Anakin Data Vault, who I played in round 1, and I'm sorry, I'm not good with names, but the gentleman on Han 2 Blue No Force was there, and the other quarterfinals match that was going on was Anakin versus it was the other Anakin player versus Iden Green, and I believe the Iden player ended up winning. And yeah. So the top 4, I believe, was Iden, 2 Anakins, and then the Han Blue. So of course we get the Anakin mirror again, and it's not good. Matt is an absolute delight to play against. I'm having a great time. I'm also like, this like 8:00 at night. I woke up at 5:00 in the morning to drive 3.5 hours to get there. I've got a 3.5 hour drive home. I'm kind of checked out. Not to say I tried during this, but I'm also like, the matchup's bad for me. We've played this match before. Didn't go well for me. I'm trying, but like, I'm chilling during this game. Like I was stressing during the Quinlan Tarkentown because I was like, that felt like it was my match to win. This one, I'm like, we're trying, but like I'm feeling like I'm 35% to win this match, if that, and because his build is better, and I think he's a better player than I am, and so yeah, I was able to steal game 1 off of Gungan Warriors. Just being able to apply a lot of pressure, and he wasn't able to control my board in time, and then I was able to like get my Poe out there, and he didn't have that. Oh, that's something else I want to talk about with my deck list. Part of why I was also interested in K2SO as a unit is I wanted to have additional respect for Spark of Rebellion Han Solo, and I wanted to have another 4-power unit to put into play on turn 4 so that I could attack with Anakin's ability and just clear a Han Solo. And K2SO does that tremendously versus Han because you're killing the unit or killing the leader and then discarding a card, which is like hand attack is very good versus Han 1 or the Spark of Rebellion Han. So I was, that was again a big part of why I wanted 3 K2SOs and 3 Captain Typhos, as I really wanted to be hitting that 4-power unit on turn 4 so that I could be killing those the Han leader on site pretty consistently. So that was like the 2 decks that I thought were most on the uptrend were the Han or the Spark of Rebellion Han green or Data Vault, I don't know. Played Data Vault, cards busted. And Yoda Data Vault as the other one. So those were like my main like targeted decks for this event, right? And I think game 1 here versus Matt, we did actually get to see the weakness of like not playing those because he had a Padme to like help clear Poe, but I had the initiative, so I play Poe. He does not have a clear way to answer that immediately without throwing away a lot of his board. So I'm able to just dish out a ton of damage with Poe, and then my Anakins are now way more threatening, especially with Cinta. So I was able to like very luckily steal a game on that one. Game 2, I just got hosed pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. I think I played poorly and didn't do good in that one. But game 2 did have a red 5 that I played in space that did like literally 18 damage. and I did like no other damage to his base, and I did like so many ping triggers with that one. Red 5 really earned its keep in that one to try to keep me alive, but it was not enough. And then I definitely floundered a little bit with my sideboarding. I wasn't entirely sure what to do. It's like I didn't really think I want to choose sides, but also like stealing a home 1 is like pretty awesome. Stealing a Kelleran, pretty awesome. But like kind of hard to engineer that setup with how interactive he can be, or the mirror will be. So I wasn't sure about that. I also tried Let's Call It War, because if I have the initiative, it's potentially a lot of damage to dish out to the board for 3 resources. Something to consider. I wasn't like mulliganing for it, but I was kind of low on Bounty Hunter's Quarry, because it seemed like he could set things up to be pretty trivial to do when he wanted, or to like avoid getting Bounty Hunter's Quarry, in addition to being like, there's no real reason for him to like take Outer Rim Constables out of the deck. I was pretty priced into leaving mine in because he had General's Blade and I did not. That was another, speaking of General's Blade, that was another interesting thing versus the Quinlan matchup, is we got to review deck lists beforehand, but after the match, Jack was talking about trying to play around General's Blade, and it's not in the deck. And that's like, this is where I feel like very scummy as in playing in paper. Like I can't. I handed him the deck list, right? He had 3 minutes to review it, but I can't make him like not. I don't want to tell him, hey, look in that deck list. There's no General's Blades. Look how smart I am. It's like, no, I just want to like let him do the thing. But he talked about explicitly playing around General's Blade, and I like, it's like it wasn't in the deck, but like so I feel kind of scummy because I'm kind of, it feels like I'm angle shooting where it's like I wasn't there the whole time, but like I don't know, and I think crucially I don't feel good about that. It's like I feel like I'm hiding information doing that, and it just feels not good to do to somebody. So that felt not great from that part of that matchup, but also don't know what I'm supposed to do to like rectify that either. It's not great. Lost my train of thought now. Game 2 versus Matt in the semifinals. I had Red 5 was doing some work for me, but I was just not really competing on the ground. And Game 3, I don't think I threw, but I definitely made a choice that was wrong, where I thought I was representing lethal, and I think I did the math wrong, because I just deployed a home 1, dropped another unit in the ground arena, and thought I was presenting lethal with home 1. And then Matt played his own home 1, and then restored like 5 with his ground attackers. And I was like, oh, I'm no longer presenting lethal. And now this is actually quite bad for me. I think my hand at the time kind of was all in on that home 1 taking me to victory. I think that was kind of what I needed to do, but I definitely did not read the board as I should have at that moment. And so I think maybe there was a better potential play from that, but either way, it was messy. It was not a good, it was a good end to the match, but I did not play the best. And I hope it's kind of clear what I'm trying to articulate here, where it's like, maybe the answer that, like, the choices that I made ended up being kind of right anyway, but I think my reasoning for getting there was not as good. And that's one that I can say it's my failing, but I will also say mental fatigue is a real factor on that one. And not an excuse, but an explanation, which is, I don't know. That's the difference between an excuse and explanation. This isn't a therapy session. I don't need to go into all that right now. But so it was kind of a messy end there, but it was still really cool. I had an absolute blast. Like, this is the most fun I've had at a PQ, and I didn't even think I was going to do well. Like, it was just nice people to be around. They were having fun. The atmosphere of the store was great. They brought food for all of us. They had Dunkin' Donuts, coffee, and munchkins there for us to snack on when we got there. Like, that was great. They had free water throughout the event. They brought free pizza for us for lunch. Like, and they're just so nice. So nice. Really wonderful people. And it's like a family-run store. Like, husband and wife doing that. Their daughter was in and out. They knew all of their employees. Really, it was just such a wonderful atmosphere to be a part of. All the local players knew each other, were asking about how their siblings were doing. Like, it was just a wonderful small town thing to be a part of. And they were very welcoming to me as, like, one of the people that traveled furthest. And so that was really cool. They were just really, really nice people. So I loved that part. So this is not... Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So part of them being super nice people is they handmade these cases for us to display the promo cards in. So here's me. If you want to know how much fun I'm having, this is me like 15 seconds after losing the semifinals. And like, that is like the best I've smiled for a picture in like a decade. So that was great. That was just the store doing that to help show them out there. But like, yeah, really nice people. So yeah, got the top 4 Thrawn in the little case here. So this is not, and again, this is a weird thing for me with like ego in this channel. It's like, I'm just trying to show off like things that make me happy, things that like bring me joy, and like talk about them and what's going on in my head. So let me move to the next one here. Let me blow the camera up a little bit, because I want to... Nope, not that one. This... Yeah, is that... Whatever, that's enough. So, there's the Thrawn case edits, and it's just a little wooden stand. And you can pull any card you want to put in there. It's a nice little slot that they have on top, and... It's got the Planetary Qualifier. It says top 4 Secrets of Power, Guardian Cards and Comics, the date of the event. Like, I am such a sentimental person. Like, that's already part of why I just want to do these PQs, is I wanted a card like this to be like, hey, remember that time you won an event? Like, I'm an absolute sucker for those things and the sentimental value. But now I've got this little stand that goes with it. It was crazy cool. I'll also show the other stuff there, because I've got plans for a few more videos. I bought a Yularen showcase for the Pauper Cube. That was fun. I also, because I obviously I didn't think I was going to get prizing, so I bought some cards for myself. I bought 2 of each booster pack because I want to do a Chaos sealed video with somebody. That's going to be fun. I also had great deals on Twilight of the Republic, so I was like, I'm going to do some sealed either for a video with myself, or like do this to just have some fun over the winter here. But the pricing was super generous. Like, top 4, I got a box of Secrets of Power, which is awesome, but that was for all of the top 8. But in top 4, they also give me a box of Spark of Rebellion, which is like the best prize to give in terms of sealed. I know it's rotating, but like, these are still like the most impactful set, and like the most valuable like standard booster that you can give me. So that was like, the pricing was very generous, and I was also just happy to support them. So that's also a sneak peek of like, you're going to see videos with those sealed product in the future. I don't know how much of that is happening soon. I'm usually a goblin when it comes to opening packs. I don't love waiting, but like the Twilight and the Spark of Rebellion boxes, like, they're rotating soon. I have the cards that I need from those sets, so it's like, that's really just going to be for a video for fun at some point. But like, definitely, there's a limited PQ I want to play in nearby, so I want to use the Secrets of Power sealed box, do some practice for that. But like, I was still like so thrilled. They took the time to like design and make these wooden little stands so that I can have my little Thrawn showing up here. Like, this is so sweet. It's just really, really nice people, and that meant a lot to me. So they did these for all the way down to top 16. Unfortunately, 9 through 16 do not get a stamped promo card, but like, it was still a really nice gesture. Not gesture, it was a nice thing to do. That's not a gesture. So yeah, I was so thrilled by that. So definitely I mean, they definitely made a repeat customer out of me. I'll tell you that much. Like, I want to go back and play again there sometime in a PQ, or that's just like, oh, maybe I should do something for, like, we've got the flip side PQ coming up in a few weeks. It's like, I should do something for that to be, welcoming to people, brighten people's day. It's like, that'd be a really nice thing to do. I'm not making something like that. I'm thinking like maybe a batch of cookies or something like that, or several batches of cookies to share with people, something to that effect. But yeah, so it was just a really great event. I had a great time. I think I talked kind of in the last video a little bit about my ego kind of needed this to like have a decent finish. And don't get me wrong, let me be very clear. This is like the smallest PQ that you'll ever see in North America and in the Northeast. This was like a 48-person PQ that I went 4-1-1 in to make top 8. I'm not a genius here. I'm not like, this is not like I've broken Anakin. But like, I think there's some cool deck building going on here. I think Seasoned Fleet Admiral is definitely something that more people should be either playing or considering playing in this deck. The Poes and the K2SOs are like, do whatever you want there. I hate General's Blade. Other people love it. Not a right or wrong here. Seasoned Fleet Admiral, though, think about it. Really think about that one. A lot of splash damage with that card. And, yeah, so it was good for my self-esteem to have a decent finish, have a little memento for it. Like, that's even cooler that I have this little trophy stand. Yeah, just all around awesome. And something that I needed. Not that I was like losing interest in Star Wars, but it's definitely, continues to motivate me to want to travel to these events, to want to participate in them. Especially, I have been losing a teeny bit of interest in Star Wars lately because the local events at Flipside Games no longer fire on Sundays. They haven't for like 3 months now. And playing on Carabas is nowhere near as fun as playing in person. So it's like the PQs are kind of now my only opportunity to play in person, which sucks. But like, I also really enjoy going to them. It's just sort of, it's difficult for the in-between periods, right, to stay motivated on like, okay, I did well at this PQ, and I'm like, what do I have next to look forward to? It's like a PQ in another month. That's cool, but like, the meta's going to move in different ways, so it's like I need to keep working on decks in the meanwhile, but like, it's also like it's going to be that week of figuring out what's the best thing for me to be playing, and doing a ton of like work ahead of time is like, it's good practice, but practice is something that Carabas is actually pretty bad for. It can lead you into some pretty bad habits, so I don't want to rely on that too much. The in-person play is like really what's good, and to that end, I certainly felt like I did okay play-wise at this event, but I also learned some ways to try and work on myself, so that's that is good too. So yeah, pretty long-winded. I was hoping to make this a shorter video, but like I can't keep from rambling, so here we are already at 1 hour and 20. So thank you for watching. Very much appreciate it. Thank you again to Guardian Cards and Comics, all the folks that I played with and talked to there. Just a really great store, really great community, and happy to be a part of that for this big event for them in some small way. And yeah, got at least like 4 videos worth of sealed product there to do. So over these, I have some time off coming up through the holidays, so I'm hoping I can at least do 1 or 2 videos for that. And I still want to play Pauper. I want to play some more Pauper of this game. Like, it's cool. So there's cool stuff going on in this set for it. So a lot of stuff I want to do, so it'll be a slow trickle, and that's okay. So hopefully got some more PQs to play in. So yeah, thank you for hanging out for a bit, and yeah, see you later.